Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Hi, everybody. Happy day. Happy day. Welcome to Storytime Friday. I am here with my lovely friend, Joey. Hi, Joey.
Hello, hello.
And she is going to help walk me through
Shoot,
my
sorry.
story.
Well, it's on. We can tell that.
Okay, I muted it there. Now we won't get that echo.
It's
Okay.
good. Okay. Yeah.
Just doing some technical here.
Fun technical difficulties.
Yes. All right. I think
It's looking good on
I got
YouTube.
it. Okay. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right.
Yeah.
Oh. Good. All right. It's always so confusing getting this started. We'll figure it out. Hey, everybody. Again, I'm Jessica Lynn Ross, and I am a spirit life counselor, ordained metaphysical minister, healer, beyond quantum healer, and yeah, and badass mommy. I keep trying to remember that, like, oh, I'm supposed to be promoting myself. That's the thing. So I keep trying to say, oh, and adding public speaker.
Yes.
That's something that I'm really working on, is getting into public speaking, so I can tell my story all over the place.
Yeah.
That's another thing that I was thinking this is going to help with Joey, is hone in the message that I have.
Absolutely.
Because I'm like, man, I could go and talk at schools to like schoolers about overcoming addictions. I could go and, at health conferences and talk about Lyme disease and overcoming health issues, and stuff. There's lots of different things. I went to a networking event on Wednesday, and the person giving the talk that day was a public speaker, and she was talking about like how to get into it. And I asked her afterwards, I was like, how do you get paid for doing it? She was like, oh, I don't get paid, but I'm like, no, I want to get paid to do this, so
that's so, like, it's like our time is worth something. So yeah,
it's not just the time, because I've been taking a bunch of webinars from public speakers. They get just enough information to like help a little bit, but their main goal is like, here, take my course and learn the rest of this stuff. And it's only $6,000, or it's only $13,000. And I was just like, so,
okay.
but I've been gleaning a little bit from each one. And one of the first ones, it totally changed my perspective of like getting paid for public speaking, because she was like, some people will be like, why pay me $5,000 for an hour of my time? Like, that's crazy. And she was like, it's not just your time. It's all the experience.
Absolutely.
So that you could have that experience and share it. It has nothing to do with just how much is an hour of your time worth. And I was like, oh yeah, my experience is worth a lot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I was looking at this other course called Speaker Lab, and I'm glad I did research. They don't have very good reviews with the Better Business Bureau. So with them. Yeah, there's this one, Jess Eskrum. Her class looks pretty cool, and she has a class where she teaches you how to get into public speaking and how to pay for it, and then how to write your book, because they go hand in hand.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. Again, it's $6,000. So
oh
maybe I can raise money to take the course.
yeah, yeah.
I believe. I believe in miracles. Okay. Oh yeah, I forgot. So today we left off last week.
Yeah. You were turning 8, but I know you said like we wanted to fill in some gaps too.
Yes. I after sorry. I forgot to take my herbs. After we finished the other day, I realized that I had left some things out, some stories, and some information that I feel is important. So I want to go back and just share some of that. And like realized too that I want to be sure, like a big reason why I haven't told my story is because I want to be respectful to my family.
Yes.
You know, I'm not the only one that experienced all of this,
Right.
you know, and I don't want to tell my story in a way that makes that leaves my family, if I don't think they follow anything that I do, but if my family were to watch, I don't want them, I want them to leave watching my story going, wow, yeah, we went through a lot, and not, oh, why, she's telling it wrong or whatever. I don't know. And also I feel really sensitive to the fact that, like, when talking about my mom, it could be really easy for her to become like the villain.
Right.
And I don't want that. I don't want that. Like, when I say that my mom was my worst enemy, I do mean that. But when she was my best friend, I really mean that too.
I really feel like this is hard because this is the issue with all of our parents, right? Like, I mean, to varying degrees, obviously, but let's like my particular situation. It took my mom passing for me to be able to really admit how unhealthy it was. And again, it's not because she's a villain, it's because she didn't know any better.
Right. Totally. Yeah. And that's the reality, is like my mom didn't have popping up,
Yeah.
And she did try. And her life was really hard too. And some of it was hard because she made it hard, but nonetheless, I just want to make sure that people listen to this story, to listen with ears of compassion, empathy, and instead of like judgment.
Yeah.
And so I just wanted to get that out there. But this that I wanted to go back. So first I wanted to also make clear that, like, I don't have so many memories of my biological dad's side of the family when I was younger, because like my mom kind of kept me away from them. And when I was around, um when I was younger, I didn't see the dysfunction. I was so in it. Like and so there was, you know, it was, yeah, my pap Sandy was grumpy, he was a grumpy old man. Um, and it wasn't until later that I learned that he drank a lot, you
Right.
know. Um, and my grandma, and when I talk about like my dad being as abusive as he was, you can have this like judgment of the mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear like that multiple people in the family struggle with addiction, there can be judgment. Like my grandma is my grandma Ross. She's amazing. She's still alive today, tough as nails, so beautiful, so courageous. I mean, she's come through Lyme disease. She had Lyme disease and she had cancer. She's watched all of her family, other than her children that are still around her. She's lived through it and one of her children dying, and I mean,
Do you know when she got Lyme disease? Do you know how long she has had it?
she got it and treated it right away.
Oh, wow.
So it went this was probably like, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, and they treated it. um and yeah, because with Lyme, if you catch it really early, then it necessarily have to become, like, it doesn't lead to
It's not
chronic.
as systemic.
Yeah, yeah. So the doctors up in Pennsylvania, it's common. So when they test for it or when they see signs, like that's why I had to go up to Maryland to get testing, because up there they see the symptoms. It's so common up there that they'll catch it.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and so yeah, she was really lucky, and 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 they caught it right away. So I just want to, like, I remember just, I mean, my grandparents, I do remember them being grumpy, my grandma and grandpa, on the Ross side. Um, but that was kind of also the era, like the time, like the adults didn't want the kids.
It's really serious. You don't, yeah.
Like it was like, just go play. Like, why are you? Also remember going to the river and visiting, and like there wasn't TV. So my family, we all, and even it's like this today. I mean, my grandma has TV now, but when you go, like, we play dice together. We
Nice.
play Skippo and Scrabble, and that was like why we loved going there, was because um, there was connection. So like there was dysfunction, but there was also this like really awesome connection, and like and fun, and so I want to just talk a little bit about what I remember from the river. I feel like this is such a fond, like, my most favorite place in the world is my grandma Rox's place, and they built this, and I think my uncle Brian also helped build the that, and it's like there is the garage is downstairs and then the house upstairs. And when I was younger, we didn't have indoor plumbing. That makes me feel so
Oh,
old. I remember a time when we didn't have indoor plumbing.
you really grew up in a it's almost like you were like 50 years in the past.
So weird. And I think it's because the town, I'm pretty sure other places had indoor plumbing, but the
Yeah.
town that I grew up in was just so poor.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, that's funny. That happened to a lot of people around here too. This little town I live in, it's just, I think it's when you're in a small area and it's really rural, things just don't progress as quickly. And
Mhm.
like, it's like there's this time gap. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so weird. Even today, going there, it's like they're not up with the rest of the world.
Yeah,
There's something nice about that.
it is. In some ways, it's beautiful.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, it's really beautiful. Um, so yeah, I remember like there being the outhouse at both of my grandparents' houses. There was the outhouse, and having to use the outhouse was just the scariest thing. It was
Yeah.
so scary. And you know what I was thinking would be fun? I think I might do some story times where I bring on my cousins.
Oh, cool.
And because I don't remember a lot from that time, I think I blocked out, especially when the trauma really started. I
Yeah.
blocked out a lot. And I one of the things I love going around my cousins side is because they have all these stories about me,
Aw.
and they'll tell the stories and we all laugh and they make fun of me and it's great. And that's kind of the way that we love each other on that side, is by like razz each other, and it's all in fun. Like nobody's trying to really hurt anybody, but they teased, everybody that side of my family, like the Ross side of my family, we were tough. And I grew up with this pride that I was a hard ass. I was tough,
Oh,
and I was kind of rough around the edges and mean. And there was a certain level of like, and even today, there's still this certain level of about that. Like, yeah, we're the Rosses. Don't fuck with us.
yeah.
Like we're dangerous. We're a dangerous family. That's right. And I don't know. There was a part of me that really liked that. Like I liked feeling dangerous.
Yeah.
I liked the feel.
Formidable.
Yeah, I was like, when I went around town, the town is the kind of town where when you meet someone, you don't give your first name. You would lead, I'm a Ross, or
Yeah.
I'm a, whatever. And people would go, "Oh, you're a Ross." And I'd be like,
Mhm.
"Yeah." Like back up.
Immediate respect. Gotta love that.
We're trouble. That's right. Don't fuck with us. And
Mhm.
and so I used to kind of wear that as a badge. And like I knew my family was dangerous because of I saw how dangerous my dad was. So when people would have the response of, "Oh, you're a Ross," I knew what they were afraid of.
Right.
Because I've heard a lot of stories of my dad being only dangerous with my mom, but he was dangerous with other people. My uncle Barry told me a story of when it would be so great to have him on to tell some stories. He told me this story where my uncle Barry, my dad, and some other guy picked me up. Um, I must have been young because I don't remember this. And I guess I was being a kid. We were in a bread truck, and I guess I was being a kid. I was being like loud or whatever. And the guy must have like complained about me being a kid of some sort. And my dad had my uncle Barry pull the bread truck over, because I guess my uncle worked for a delivery. I don't know. I don't know how they got a bread
Right.
truck. They could have stolen it for all I know. And like beat the shit out of this guy for
Yeah.
complaining about me. And like, because like whenever I would hear because when I get around them, I'm like, can you tell stories about my dad? Because he died when I was young, and so like it's been a long time. So they'll be like, he loved you so much. Like he apparently he really loved me in a fierce way, but he was also really sick. So it was like not not healthy.
Not
But
healthy, but it's so cool to know that he loved you like that too.
and I
To the
remember,
yeah.
I remember. I mean, I loved my dad.
Yeah.
Little and just and looking at that and seeing how there, I mean, he never hit me, and but just seeing how I could witness this person being so violent and still have this intense love.
Absolutely.
How for my almost my entire life, my relationship, my love life was so chaotic, and I was dating,
Yeah.
abusive men, and I'm like, oh. That's
Yeah.
where I learned what love was like with my parent. That's why, like, as a parent now, I'm so aware that, like, for some fucked up reason, we find partners who resemble our parents, and I'm like, I better be a stellar human being. Kids can, find people that are like,
Healthy.
yeah. So yeah, so that's one of the memories. And I just remember going to the river, and the when she did get septic or something with the well would dry. Oh, we couldn't use a lot of water because the well would go dry. And so, like, we had to go bathe in the river. Like, I grew up bathing in the river. Like, I was a river. So bathing in the river, and shaving in the winter. Oh, because the water would get so it would be so cold. Not like they had us going out there when it was snowing, but like, we would go out, lips all blue, and yeah, and it was simple. I just remember it being really simple. And there were times of violence, but there were also wonderful times of, like, joy and connection and love, and my cousins, because I wasn't around very often. I had a few cousins that I was super close to. My Uncle Brian's daughter, Sarah, my cousin Brianna, and mostly my cousin Brianna. My cousin Brianna and I, we were thick as thieves, man. We were super. She was my ride or die.
Nice.
She later in the story, she ended up getting murdered.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and but she was my bestie, and then there was my cousin. So many memories are coming back now.
Yay.
It's all good. So yeah, my cousin Brianna and I, oh my God, we got in so much trouble together. We were just troublemakers.
Awesome. Were you guys the same age?
Yeah, we were about the same age. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so I remember living in Wimber. We used to live in this place called Stadium Terrace, and it was um welfare housing. And we lived there, and then my Uncle Brian and Aunt Jerry lived also, like, down the way. And my cousin Brianna was. Sarah is much younger than I am. So she was just kind of a toddler then. So cute. She's got these big, big blue eyes and
Oh,
blonde hair. She's just, and still, like, now her eyes are more like blue. They're and green. They're just, she's got the prettiest eyes. Uh, and gorgeous hair. She's such a gorgeous woman. But Brianna and I, oh my God, we would do so much bad stuff. We, like, I mean, I remember, like, getting my ass beat because we almost set the house on fire.
holy crap.
We just, yeah, man, it was really, we were rotten together. So she was the one that I was closest with. And then I had my Aunt Tracy and Uncle John. Their kids are Johnny, uh, Lori, and Jamie. And I didn't get to see them very much because they lived in Virginia, but when they would come, John was my age, and he was so mean. He was
Oh,
so mean. And he would come and the river would get this slime and like
yeah.
I would leave, so this is just all my memories of being at the river, but these memories happened after I had moved to California and came back to visit. I was a little bit older. Johnny would come to visit and he would pick this. There was this slime that would be on top of the river. I don't know what it is, like algae or something, and it would like float. And he would pick the algae and sling it at me, and he was just so mean and so rotten. And we would argue all the time, but at the same time, like we were super tight. And then I loved whenever my cousins Lori and Jamie would come, because I can't remember so much. This is why I really do. I want to have my cousins come on and we'll tell stories. I think that would be really fun. And and so we just had great times. And then my uncle Craig and his daughter Michelle, she's again much younger than I am, but there's this one memory that they would have to tell because I apparently had a fear, or I had like a dream of cows with like red eyes. I have a history of having dreams about humans and animals with red eyes.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why. And I guess I had maybe had this, there was a scary story about cows with red eyes. And my cousins and I were all in the trailer, and my uncle came, like this was how they were, like when my uncles came and started making mooing sounds and like rocking the camper, and then my were like, it's the cows, and I'm like losing my mind, and yeah, so I'll have them come on and we'll tell stories. But the big thing is that I wanted to, because last video was like a lot, like there was a lot of abuse and there was a lot of chaos and stuff, but I felt safe there. I felt I felt safer there than I did with my mom.
Sure.
Everyone was pretty well behaved when I was around because they knew my mom would like not allow me to come if chaos happened while I was there. So I feel like everyone was pretty well behaved. Yeah.
Cool that your mom set that boundary too.
Yeah. Yeah. She was fiercely protective of me when it came to being around my dad, which is understandable, Yeah. So yeah, so there were lots of good times at the river. And then I also wanted to tell you the memories I have of my stepdad when I moved to California. So when I first came to the house in California, and his house was so pretty, there was, the den, and like I was coming from living in a 1-bedroom apartment with my mom, and there was like this den, and we had a pool out back, and so Beverly Hillbillies, that's what I felt like. I was like, oh, rags to riches, look at this is crazy. I just remember feeling like so rich.
Yeah.
And that was And I remember earthquakes happening and
Oh,
the water in the pool like just go crazy, and like having the first earthquake of like shaking in the house, and you're just like, oh my God. And my mom's like, get in the doorway, and you have to stand in the middle of a door. Everything's just like shaking and falling off. It's so weird. Earthquakes are so weird. And then we would have tremors all night. And so I would go to, and you learn to sleep through them. And so
wow.
I go to sleep and my bed would be, in its spot, and I would wake up and my bed would be moved into the middle of the floor. And
Oh,
because of the tremors would just slowly like move it. Um, do you have earthquakes up there?
you know, there's a little bit, but I haven't really felt any. So it's kind of weird. I mean, they're not super close. A lot of times they happen, just off the coast. And so it kind of moves in. But yeah, I
Right.
haven't felt any yet. So,
They're so crazy. They're so weird. And I remember also at that, like, I guess killer bees had started to enter the country.
my goodness.
This would have been in like 1980, 88, 87, 88. And in school we would have killer bee drills. And
Oh,
and earthquake drills, and everything we would, in the earthquake drill you had to climb under your desk, and then for the killer bee drills we would run outside into the middle of the field with like a newspaper over our head. And I just remember being like 7, 8 years old, going out, and how stupid this is. Like, how the fuck is this newspaper gonna protect us from these like killer bees? Yeah, and I also remember, I remember being young and having like bomb drills,
oh yeah, yeah.
because the Cold War was happening.
Uh-huh.
And so I remember having bomb drills also. That's weird. Um, I remember being really scared of the Cold War. Like I had a concept of what was going on, and there was always this fear of like Russia could attack at any moment.
Yeah.
So like I remember this low level of fear, just like that at any moment, things could go south.
I mean, I think that's a really good thing to point out is like how much just as a country we've been seriously like in like PTSD, traumatized for
Yeah.
a long time. Long time.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always been some like threat,
Yep.
And
Don't
so
forget
I
to be
remember, huh?
don't forget to be scared, everybody.
Yeah. 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 Be afraid. Be very afraid.
Yeah.
So I remember walking into the house the first day in California and just being like, wow. And he had a dog. His name was Czar.
Nice.
He was this German Shepherd.
Aw.
He became my buddy. And he was my brother because I'm an only child. So like this
Yeah.
became my stepbrother.
Oh, how cute.
And we would play, and he would let me dress him up, and it was horrible. And so I remember walking in, and I walked into my room, and it had a twin bed and this like dresser, and there's really pretty blue velour blanket, and bed was this teddy bear with a little plastic heart that would go, and you go, and I was just so excited because of course I'm like 5, 6 years old, and then it would record, like if you pressed its paw, it would record what people were saying, and then you press the other paw and it would play.
Yeah.
bear got me in so much trouble. And I remember this one, we were like, I'm listening to the adults have these conversations, and as a little kid, I'm like, this is inappropriate. And I remember thinking, like, I'm gonna record and play it back. So my mom is just like cursing up a storm. She was very crude and talking about really inappropriate stuff. And I was recording, and then I played it back, and just like the look on her face, I'll say stuff, and like everybody else being like, and then she'd be like, don't do that. And like, everybody just gave her shit. But I had that teddy bear for like 15 years.
Wow.
And it meant so much to me that and he was very kind. He was always very kind, and he would talk to me. And then I remember, one day we're hanging out, and I don't remember how it happened, but I think I was like, are you my dad?
Oh.
Are you my dad? And are you going to be my dad, or something like that? And I don't remember what he said, but then I was like, well, how would you feel if I called you dad? Would it be okay if I called you dad? It was just, he like started to tear. It's just like, I would love that. Like, absolutely. And so that's,
That's so adorable. Was that pretty quick after you moved in with him?
Yeah, I would say within the first like 6 months to a year. He was just so kind. Betsy just joined. Hi, Betsy. Thanks for joining. Yeah, like I had never had, other than my pap, my pappy on my mom's side. He, I hadn't had any other man around me that was so kind. And so I just loved him so much, and he did so much for me. I mean, we went to amusement parks, and he was just amazing. Yeah, see Craig. Yeah. Yeah, he's just such a kind soul. So yeah, those were the stories that I wanted to throw in there from before.
It sounds like you really enriched his life too.
Yeah, I think we really helped each other.
Yeah.
Because he was an introvert. He was a serious introvert. If it weren't for my mom making him go and do stuff, he didn't go and do anything. Like he was very comfortable being at home working or watching TV. And so my mom and I really got him out.
Nice.
And my mom was a party animal, and she always wanted to go do stuff. And so she was dragging him all over the place.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, they ended up getting married when I was 7, I think. Yeah, in 1987, they got married on August 7th.
Oh.
And the wedding was a huge wedding. It was like 250 people. They had it in Wimber, where everyone was from, so we all flew to Wimber. And later I realized my mom was on coke the whole time. She told me, she was like, the only way I got through that wedding was, she kept going to the bathroom. I was like, what's going on? And then later, she ended up telling me that it was a 3-day affair.
Oh, wow.
And it
Jeez.
was Irish Catholic wedding. So the ceremony was, 3 hours long. I was a flower girl.
Nice.
Yeah, it was really great. It was a really cool wedding, and we partied, and all the family was there, and everyone was drunk. And then even after the wedding, we went back to my grandma's and grandpa's on my mom's side. And then, the entire family is musicians. So everybody's playing music, and then there's the kegs. And I mean, just like it was huge. It was a huge celebration. I think for everyone, for my mom to have found someone that was a person, like it was a real celebration. And I remember, and then they went to Hawaii for their honeymoon, and I stayed with my grandma and grandpa, and I just remember being so angry that my grandma wouldn't let me go outside in my pajamas. Because I had just gotten new pajamas, and I wanted to wear them all the time, and she wouldn't let me. Ridiculous. I remember when they came back from their honeymoon. So during that, we had commercials for Snuggles. The laundry, the softener.
Yeah.
And I loved that bear. I loved teddy bears. So that's why when my dad got me the teddy bear, that was such a big deal, because he was like, oh, he knows me, And so when they came back from California, they come and like, we have something for you. And they show me this Snuggles bear. And I was like, oh! And I remember being so sad that it didn't talk.
That's so funny, right? Because all of them should talk. What the heck?
It's like, what's he's not talking? Like, he's broken. What? And my mom had to explain, oh no, like that's not real, but I loved that bear too. I really loved teddy bears. And and yeah. So then shortly after they got married, dad got relocated to Germantown, Maryland. So we flew, we moved. Oh, because I remember being in California. Oh, it was so sad. I remember feeling sad for my mom and dad, because the house, it was so beautiful there, and we had such a great life there. I mean, like, my mom was drinking a lot and doing a lot of cocaine, but that's when I start to remember her, she was like getting like unreasonable, if she could hear me chew. And now I understand, because I experienced misophonia, which is not being able to hear people chew. Like, I will become irate.
Yes.
I can hear people chew, and I have to really work with myself. And I realized that, like, that's not reasonable. It's like not a reasonable response. My mom didn't have that kind of awareness. So when she would hear me chew, she would just slap the shit out of me.
Move.
And so like dinner times were really traumatizing, because if I chewed too loud, or if I didn't finish my meal, I wasn't allowed to get up from the table. And I was a very stubborn, I'm a very strong-willed child. And I was like, I know you are trying to, like, you're not gonna make me. Like, I will accept the consequences. I think it was really hard for my mom, because when I had my own idea, like, I was willing to accept any consequences, be able to like hold to what I thought. So if I like something that she like lima beans or something like that, fine, I'll sit here until 10 o'clock at night.
Wow.
And I won't eat for 2 days, because if I didn't finish, then in the morning, whatever I didn't finish was what was for breakfast.
Ugh.
And so then fine, I won't eat until I go to school. You know what I mean? And it's just like that. And so So dinner times became like, that's when I start having like trauma around dinner and eating,
Sure.
which is important to the story later. Um, so yeah, but I remember them repainting the house. Um, my mom wanted a white house with baby blue trim. And it was so pretty. It was such a beautiful house. And my mom loved it so much. And it was kind of like living in paradise. I remember going to the park with my friend Jennifer. She was my best friend there. And we would go to the park and we would swing on swings. And I remember just, we're swinging on the swings and it's the most beautiful day. And the weather is always perfect. And there's this swarm of birds that's flying around and they're like making shapes. And now the way I remember it is that they were making shapes and Jennifer and I were like, make a star, and it would like make the star shape.
Oh, how cool.
Like I don't know if that's really true or not, but
Maybe.
this is the way that I remember it. And so it was paradise for me. It was paradise. And I thought
it kind of was for everybody, for all of you. It was paradise.
Yeah. That's when things were, and okay, this is driving me nuts because it's uneven. There we go. And yeah, so it got too expensive. It just got too expensive. Even though my dad was making really good money working for IBM, it got too expensive. And so my dad got relocated to, I believe he worked in Bethesda, Maryland, but we moved to Germantown. And we moved to this townhouse, which to me felt like a mansion because it had like 4 different floors, 3 floors. You would walk in and there's the foyer and the garage, and then if you went straight back, it was my dad's office, his den. And then you would go up the stairs, and then there was the kitchen with the sliding glass door to go out onto the tiniest little patio backyard, backyard. And then there was the formal dining area, and then there was like this one step down was this big living room, and there was pretty window, and then a half bath, and then you go upstairs again and the bedrooms. And so I had never been in something that was so tall, so I remember like, oh, it's a Barbie house, like Barbie's mansion, because she had so many levels. And we lived in Seneca Valley, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was the first time, like it's the first time I really remember fall. And like, because I mean, obviously living in Pennsylvania, we had all 4 seasons, but I wasn't quite young enough to like really like appreciate it. And so we moved to Maryland. It was beautiful. It was really beautiful. And I made friends. We lived in a community, and at the bottom was a cul-de-sac. And I lived in a community, and my besties were Heather and Erin Coddington.
Nice.
And Erin became my first love. And we were like 8 or 9 years old. Well, yeah, we were only like 7, between 7 and 8.5, 9. And we played all the time. There was a park at the end of the cul-de-sac up on this big hill, and we would go up, and it was just Erin, or not Erin, Heather, Heather, Erin, and I. And I remembering like Heather's house was really strange. Her parents were strange. I think they were really strict. and like they had tinted windows in our house. And I don't remember specifically what was so weird, but I definitely remember like it was strange feeling. And Aaron and I, you know, were very, very, very close. And so, and then also in the row of townhouses, there was my friend Kane, who lived on the end, and his family was from Taiwan. And then on the other end of the row was my babysitter, and she was from India.
Nice.
And I would take turns after school going to either of their places. And so I had this like it was my first experience with like food, different kinds of food, because I would come home from school and I would go to the Indian woman's house, and she babysat a few kids, and I would, she would make me roti, fresh roti on the stove with like butter and cinnamon and honey, and it was so delicious. And I remember falling in love with Indian food. And curry. Masman curry is just the best. And but then I would go over to Kane's house and Taiwan food, and just I remember really enjoying the diversity and the way that their houses smelled so different from mine. And I feel being very aware as like this 8-year-old, 9-year-old, and life was good. And I went to school, and I remember it was the first time that I like had like little boy crushes. And there was what were their names? One of them, or no, that wasn't there yet. No, okay, that's not yet. But yeah, and I remember, so I got held back.
Was it because you moved?
No.
Okay.
In 3rd grade. Because at this point, the situation with my mom was really escalating. And the way I remember it, and with full understanding that maybe this isn't how it was.
Sure.
But I started to have, so remember I was born with Lyme, and the first symptom I had, that's right. Oh my God. So we have to go back to California.
Okay.
So when I was 7, there's so many like parts of my story. It's hard to remember all of it. So when I was 7, I woke up one morning. So when I was 5 was the first time I had an issue with Lyme, and that's when my legs went numb. And then when I was 7, I woke up and I had a goiter out my chin. Like all of this swelled up and was out past my chin and hurt so bad. And I remember going to my mom, and like I remember the panic in her face. Oh my God, and I was like, Mom, my throat hurts. And she's like, no fucking shit. Like,
yeah,
I bet it does. And rushed to the doctor, and they couldn't figure out what was going on. And they started talking to my mom and talking to me about the chances that it could have been cancer.
Right.
My cousin, David, had just died of leukemia.
Gosh.
And I remember just being terrified, like hearing that and being like, I'm going to die too. And like between that and like the way I was being treated at home, my mom and we were really in opposition with each other. at that point, I wouldn't say she was my best friend yet. Like when I was younger, that's probably when she's more my enemy.
Yeah.
And so
Did
none,
she like kids?
huh?
Did she like kids?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that she did. I
Right.
I don't think she had like an aversion to children, but she was young. She had me when she was 21.
Yeah.
I think more than anything, I was, I kept her from living
He
her
was
best.
convenient, right? Because she couldn't party all the time.
Mm-hmm. She had to be responsible, and I think she resented me for that.
Sure.
Um, and so they couldn't figure out what was going on, and they flew me to Georgetown, Maryland hospital. Because there was like the top endocrinologist there, and she did some labs, and has no one tested her for Hashimoto's thyroidism, and it's like that's what it is. We just have to put her on Synthroid, and
Oh,
and the reason why they couldn't figure that out was because it's almost unheard of, or was it that, for 7-year-old to have Hashimoto's thyroidism. That's usually something that happened to women in their 40s.
yeah.
No one looked for it because it was so rare. And so they put me on thyroid medication. And then, my throat got better. When your thyroid is off balance, though, it affects you mentally.
Oh, yeah.
And
Okay.
so I started to have mood imbalances and depression. I, I'm sure I was reacting to having been sexually abused, not realizing it. Like I had a lot go on in my little life. I had witnessed, severe abuse. And so I'm sure it was difficult to deal with the way I responded to the trauma, right? And in my parents' eyes, I was a difficult child. Is trouble. And then being told that I I was like, I'm trouble. Something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
And so it started to spin some like emotional issues. And I remember being counseling from the time I was 8. Because my mom, she was just like not knowing what to do, not knowing how to handle it. Her way of handling it was losing her shit. And and so she did try. Like this is what I'm saying. Like she did try, but I would go to the counselor. Oh, and I was doing so bad in school. That's what it was. Like it was just I didn't care. I went to school and I was like, this is so stupid.
Oh,
Like,
wow.
why none of this makes sense to me? Why do I have to learn this? I'm never going to use this. Like why? I saw like how out of alignment it was, and I had a bad attitude. Because like we were talking yesterday, you and I, Joey, like
Yep.
my power had been stripped away.
Yep.
There was no respect for me saying, hey, this doesn't work for me. Like my mom didn't do what I did with my kids, which, oh, this doesn't feel good, we're taking you out of school,
Yeah.
homeschool you. Like my mom didn't want to homeschool me.
Yeah.
So I became combative and disruptive. I also had I experienced 6 different forms of ADHD. So there's 7 different kinds. I experienced 6 of them. And so because of that, I was very disruptive as a child. I didn't fit in to the paradigm. I had like, I was very challenging to my teachers because when they said something, I would be like, well, that doesn't make sense. And I would challenge them to it. And then they saw it as disrespect when I was just trying to understand.
Yep.
Make it make sense for me.
Yes.
But if you can't explain it enough to where it makes sense, then you don't know what you're talking about.
And then absolutely why?
Yeah. And then why? Why are you teaching me something that you don't even know why? Like, why are we doing this? It's like, it just never made sense to me. So I got a bad attitude. And so didn't do the work. And then they held me back.
I see.
That was when the story of like, why are you doing this? You have so much potential. You're not living your potential. Like, why are you doing this? And that's when that program got started.
Yeah.
Like you know, my mom used to tell people when I would walk when I was little the street, and I would go up and just shake people's hands. Hi, how are you? And I would just talk to everybody, and she would say like, here's your first woman president. And
Aww.
she would like really, she would build me up like I'm this special, and that I'm failing by being that whatever version of special she thought. And so yeah, so they held me back in 3rd grade. I think I got held back in kindergarten too. And I had, because of being sexually abused at a young age, I was sexual in my life at a very young.
Absolutely.
I remember like coming back to me now is there was a girl in kindergarten or 1st grade, and she obviously had been abused also, because we were like 5 or 6, like making out.
Mm-hmm.
And touching each other, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then so when I was in Maryland, Aaron, I don't know if he had been sexually abused, you know, by this time we're like 8.
Mm-hmm.
But he was also sexual.
Mm-hmm.
So our parents didn't know that, and we would have sleepovers, and like we didn't know how to have sex or anything, but there was definitely like trying going.
Yeah, experimenting.
Yeah, we were definitely doing a little bit more than playing doctor.
Yeah.
I remember that was the first I as much as my little 8-year-old heart could love, like I loved Aaron so much. And I just remember him being so handsome. He had like eyes and blonde hair, and we would watch Dirty Dancing together and like try to mimic it. I would sneak into his house when his parents would leave him home alone for hours at 8 years old.
So I mean, if that's happened, then probably he was
I'm assuming because from what I remember, I wasn't like teaching him anything.
Right.
It was like, you know, also like, hey, let's do this, you know. And he was my boyfriend, and and it was fun. It was fun. And then you know, that's when so my mom met Kathy and John was a fireman, and I don't know what Kathy did, I don't know, but Kathy and I got really, really close. And this is the first time I remember my mom feeling threatened by another woman who saw that I wasn't getting the attention
Mm-hmm.
and wanted to give it to me.
Yeah.
And so when we go over to John and Kathy's house, because they would drink and party all the time together. I think they live no, not next door. I don't know where they live, but they would take me to the fair. They got me my first goldfish. Like, you know, we were all close. We would go over to their house, and Kathy had this whole bedroom that had hundreds of teddy bears. She collected teddy bears. And so as a little girl that loved teddy bears, I was in heaven.
Yeah.
And they would just let me play in the room, and they would go drink and do coke or do whatever they did and party.
Wow.
And but Kathy was the first one that taught me about like makeup, and she taught me how to curl my eyelashes, and she would let me sit at her makeup desk and like she would do makeup with me, and she spent time with me and bonded with me. And I just remember being so thirsty for that kind of attention and that love. And because my mom, she wasn't, you know, she wasn't a girly girl. She played softball. Um, she was rough. She was tough, and you know, took no shit from no one. She was pint sized and bulletproof.
Oh,
She had been through a lot, so
yeah.
she was really tough. And I think she wore mascara and blush, but like she wasn't really into like makeup the way Kathy was. Kathy was like really into it. And Kathy started to tell my mom that she should get me into modeling.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you know, I'm all about it. And I don't think my mom was too keen on it. But she started to warm up. I have a few pictures where they have me posing, like, you know, being a model. And I just loving it, like feeling so pretty.
Yeah.
Yeah, and seen um and then suddenly John and Kathy were gone. I don't know what happened. My mom and her had a big fight. I
Dang.
wish I knew what happened. I have no idea, but suddenly they weren't around anymore. And I just remember being so sad about that. And then so we were in Germantown for like a year and a half, 2 years maybe. I remember there was a hill we used to go sledding down, and I didn't have a hill. I didn't have a sled or anything. So my mom was like, you don't need a sled. Those things are dumb. We're not wasting our money on that. You're going to use a plastic bag. A plastic bag you're going to go way faster in a plastic bag than you are in a sled. Or cardboard, you know, we would use. And so I would do that, and it was fine. But I remember this one day, there was this kid, and he had a red sled, and it was fancy. And it had these brakes, these pull up brakes that you could pull, and it like put little things down into the sand or into the snow to like stop you. And it had feet, and it was like super, super fancy. And we made an ice ramp, and everybody was like, oh, I want to go down, and there's a kid that went down before me, and he went over it and flips, and he lands, and he's like, what I don't realize is he got the wind knocked out of him.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess he was embarrassed. He didn't want to tell anyone what happened, and so he like crawled around for a little bit. He ends up and I was like, yeah, it's my turn. And I went down, and like, if this is the seat and this is my back, when I went over the ice made my back bent backwards over and I flipped, and then I land, and the wind is knocked out of me. Get up, and then I had this intense pain in my back. And um I think they ended up calling an ambulance.
Oh my goodness.
Called an ambulance, or somehow I went home and had to go to the hospital. But by this time, I had started to learn that I could get my mom's attention by being sick.
Mm. Yeah.
And I could get the nurturing and the attention that I wanted when I was sick. And so I remember knowing nothing was wrong with my back, but wanting the attention.
Yes. Oh.
You know? And so we went, and the doctor was like, yeah, it's sprained, she sprained her back. So like I did hurt it, but I remember putting it on a little to get my mom's attention. And so so when I was 8 or 9, like, that's when I started to have really severe gut issues. And this is like trigger warning, like TMI. I went to the bathroom, and my stomach was hurt. It would just hurt all the time. It just hurt all the time. And I couldn't poop. And then one day I went to go to the bathroom, and when I got up, there was blood in the toilet, my hair, like blood just everywhere. Not just a little blood, but like the whole toilet was full of blood. It was terrifying. I'm like 8, 9 years old, and I scream and I call for my mom, and she's like, what the fuck? Like, rush me to the hospital again. And then this is when I start remember like feeling like an alien, having experiments done on me. Because they could not figure out what was wrong. And we had to keep going back for tests. I don't know how long this went on, but then they started talking about cancer again. It could be cancer. And so then I'm hearing the cancer thing again. And I'm mood disorders already, and I'm going to counseling. And then, my mom had started to get really abusive at this point. I think my dad's marriage was not doing amazing. My mom was drinking a lot and doing stronger drugs like PCP. And there was just so much going on. And then this. And they ended up, I had to go in for multiple procedures, and I was afraid to go to the bathroom, because when I went to the bathroom, I would bleed profusely. And I started holding it. And then I had complications from holding it.
Right.
And it was just really hard. And my mom, that's when I remember feeling she hates me. She doesn't want me around. That's why when I hurt my back, I was like, this is an opportunity for me to get her to be sweet. I had stomach bugs. I remember waking up like multiple times, and I would just have these horrendous stomach bugs, and I would just vomit, and I was sick. I started to get sick all the time. I was just sick all the time. And they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And I can't imagine how stressful that was for my mom. can't imagine how hard that was for her. I would be a wreck if my children were sick like that. Like I can't imagine how hard it was for her. And as hard as it got for her, the more she drank, you know. Um and so they ended up finding out that I had polyps on my colon. And so I had to go in for surgery so they could remove the polyps. Um, and they diagnosed me with something called lymphonodular hyperplasia, which is a name for it, but they didn't know what it was. And to be honest, I still don't know what it was. Look it up and
Yeah,
see what.
that's crazy. That's huge.
Yeah.
Well, and this whole time you have Lyme, and you, like, still no one knows, right?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows. Nobody has any idea what's going on. Okay. Okay, this is
Does it make sense?
lymphonodular hyperplasia is a common finding in pediatric colonoscopies. It is mainly associated with food allergy,
Oh.
but irritable bowel syndrome, immunodeficiency, inflammatory bowel disease, familia, Mediterranean fever, and the presence of MEFV mutations may also be associated with nodular hyperplasia in children. And I have food allergies. And then this one says lymphonodular hyperplasia of the gastrointestinal tract is a rare disease characterized by numerous small polypoid nodules in the small intestine, large intestine, or both. It is associated with immunodeficiency and infection, such as Giardia and Helicobacter pylori. But nobody, but there was no, like, so I had an immunodeficiency, but nobody, there was no
no information, no
information back then. I mean, Lyme didn't come out until 1970. So this, right. 9 years into Lyme being a thing. And then it was like kind of isolated in Connecticut, they thought. So right. It's not like I blame anybody, but fuck, and so then I wasn't allowed to eat certain foods. They completely took me off candy. I remember, like, for these tests, I couldn't eat for 7 days before a test. Intestinal tract had to be completely emptied out. And so then I learned how to not eat.
Wow.
Right? And then after the test was done, I would get rewarded with a German chocolate cake and steak. And I was having behavioral issues, and I was having health issues. And I mean, there was just so much going on. And I remember I have this memory, I was grounded all the time, and my mom would take things from me for my grounding. It wasn't, and I was just grounded to my room. And I didn't care. Like, the more she wanted me to care, the less I cared. Like, it was my way of getting back at her was by having no fucks about the punishment.
Wow.
And so it got more intense and more intense. And like, so at some point I had no toys in my room, but that I was a very imaginative child, so that didn't bother me. I would sing and I would make up, and I had made up friends, and I learned how to be alone really well. And then it got to the point where, like, she wouldn't allow me to pick out my clothes anymore as a punishment. And she was just like, and then she had counseling, and the school was trying to figure out ways to bribe me to do better. Like, if I I had progress reports, and if I got a progress report during the week, then I could get a toy or something like that. And I just remember being very aware of like, well, what are you going to offer me?
Yeah.
What if
What's in it for
like
me?
what's in it for me? Like, well, what's the present this week?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll behave, you know, and just being so angry, like at 9 years old, just so angry at life and so confused and
Right.
so hurt by my mom because like there was this side of her that was could be really nurturing when I was sick, and then there was this side of her that like I remember one day, I don't know what I had done. I was sitting in front of the TV. She comes up the stairs and is screaming at me. And I don't know, I'm sure I had some smart ass remark to say. And she like kicks me as hard as she can in the back.
Jesus.
And my dad gets involved, and it's this whole thing. And like, and then, so like the abuse was ramping up. And so it was so strange because like all I wanted was her love and attention, but the only time I got the love and attention was when I was like severely ill. And if it wasn't a severe thing where other people could see it, like the blood in the toilet or then I was just doing it to make it up. I was just making it up. I wanted attention, and I was just saying things to get out of something. Like if I had a stomach ache, unless I was throwing up, I was just making to get attention. And so I was just so confused as a child. I was so absolutely confused as a child. And I wanted help, and I felt like no one around was helping me, and I was started to get mad at my dad because I was like, you can see what's going on and you're not helping.
Yeah, I was wondering if he ever stepped in between what your mom was doing. Okay.
No, not in front of me. And I do remember there was one time I had done something wrong, and he did spank me. He got a belt and he spanked me, and it left bruises.
Oh my
And
God.
that time in school, we message of, hey, if your parents are hitting you and leaving bruises, that's not okay. You need to tell the school. And so even though my mom had hit me all the time, she would tell me that if I went to the authorities, they would take me away.
Gosh.
And then I was going to end up in a home by somebody who would beat me even worse. I was going to get molested. And so I needed to just like realize how lucky I was to have the mom that I had. And the abuse was what it was. And how lucky I was that I wasn't getting beat as bad as she got beat, because my grandma beat her so hard she would piss herself.
Oh my goodness.
And so in my mom's eyes, she was doing better. She didn't beat me until I pissed myself. So like, yeah, there was beatings, but it wasn't, she didn't slam my head into walls, which was what she got. Like she got severely abused. So I can see how from her.
So for her, she just thought it was a responsible punishment. Is that what she was thinking? Like this is just
I guess.
Wow.
Like it was really my fault. You know, it was always my fault. But I remember like realizing like I'm gonna get in trouble no matter what.
Uh-huh.
I think that's what really broke me. I remember being 8 years old, and the rule was I was supposed to go inside when the street lamp came on. But it was snowing, and I had made an igloo, and it took me all day to make this igloo. And then I was laying on top of it, looking up, and the stars were coming out, and the street. And I remember going, I should go inside right now. I'm going to get in trouble. And then I remember going, I'm going to get in trouble for something no matter what. So I might as well do what I want in my life, because there's there's no control over anything. And I
Yeah.
get shit on. And like that, I mean, that was what it felt like. That was really what it felt like. Oh, I remember why my dad spanked me, because there was a dog that, like, in the row of behind us, there was a dog that would bark incessantly, incessantly. And Aaron and I were mad at it because it was barking while we were trying to play. And we took rocks and we were trying to scare it. And I broke the glass. I broke their slide glass door. And I tried to lie about it. The guy comes down. I remember Aaron and I were like, oh shit, let's just pretend it didn't happen. And we're playing. And then the guy comes down with his dog, and he's just like talking. I remember being like, this is it. Like, I'm in so much trouble. And so I didn't like, I tried to like pretend like I didn't know what he was talking about. And it was just like, where's your house? And I was right there, like, I'm fucked. And so I think that's what my dad got the belt out for. And so I had bruises, and I went to school and I said, hey, my dad hit me. And I remember like wanting to tell them everything. It's bad, and this is the abuse that's happening at home, and I need help, And I also remember being so afraid of telling on, because I knew if I told what she was doing and they didn't take me, I was going to get, it would have been really bad. I had the fear that if I did tell them that what she was doing, they would take me. And then I would end up in a house that molested me or beat me worse. And so I just remember feeling so stuck. Social services got involved, and they interviewed me, and they interviewed my mom, and all this stuff. And my mom beat me for telling. And then my dad never laid a hand on me ever again, never even raised his voice at me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so that's when things really start to get hard. And then when I was 9, we moved Germantown, Maryland to Walkersville, Maryland, which was about 2 hours away. And I remember that was my first heartbreak of leaving Aaron and Heather, but mainly Aaron. I remember going into a depression. I remember listening to Roxanne, and like sad rock music and love songs, and having to go to a new school again, and being in a new neighborhood, and and being there, dealing with all the health problems still in the gut. Eventually the blood stopped. They took cheese, bananas out of my diet, and the blood stopped. And bananas and beans. There was some foods I couldn't eat. And then the blood stopped, and they removed the polyps. But I was having like severe emotional problems at that point. And my mom and dad's, could tell, was not doing well.
Yeah.
And my mom was just really drinking a lot. And he had expressed to me that it was very hard for him to watch my treat me like that. And when I asked him, like, why didn't you do anything? He was like, because I knew if I stepped in, that would take you away from me. And
Mm-hmm.
I knew I was the only like safety you had. And
Oh, wow.
basically he stayed with her for a long time because of me. And he was like, at least I could be there to buffer,
Wow.
or to be the example of like a kind, loving parent. And then yeah, we moved to Walkersville.
Let me ask you real quick. So we are at an hour and a half. Do you want to go
Yeah.
a bit long? Do you want to stop?
No,
Okay.
I
Might
think
be
this is a good spot.
point. Okay.
Yeah, I think this is a good spot because um yeah, things, trauma really starts to ramp up from here.
Okay.
Um yeah.
Yeah, we'll definitely get into that. No, I like this. I like that last time made you remember so much more. It's like and
Yeah.
a lot of happy stuff too.
Yeah. There were lots of happy stuff. And you know, my mom, like, she would say a lot, you know, really remember the bad stuff. I wish you could remember the good stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
Say, I hope you remember that there are good times too. That was always what she would say. Like, there would be so many bad stuff going on, and she would say, I just hope that you remember that there are good moments too. And like, I'm sure that there were, um, but they were so overshadowed
Oh
by
yeah.
the abuse and the sickness and just having no power or no control, and wanting, you know, not just like a toy, or not attention like that, but like real connection with my mom, and wanting her to not fucking beat me, and not understanding why it was so, like, what about me was so bad. But now I realize it didn't have anything to do with me. Like, mom didn't have the coping skills. She didn't, you know, she had gone to counseling. I think she started to go to counseling around that time. Um, she had so much trauma of her own, and and she didn't know how to deal with it. And I was having a difficult experience. And that, I can't imagine how hard that must have been for her to experience on top of her own trauma. Um,
I really love that it didn't make you a meek person.
hmm,
And I realize there's a lot of things in a lot of ways it's affected you, but I'm just seeing that it didn't make you shy away from the world.
right. I think a large part of that is like, well, I've always had kind of a bold personality, but when I was like, when as soon as we moved to Walkersville, my mom got me into acting,
Oh,
and that's a big part
okay.
of it. Um, and I fought, like I fought to not shut. I mean, did it make me meek? No, but it definitely, um, it almost made me the opposite.
Yeah.
It made me really aggressive
Yeah. Sure.
for a long time. And and you know, it's interesting because like in a lot of ways it did make me meek. My relationships with people, like my love relationships, I
That
f-
makes.
I was very meek.
Mhm.
Um and yeah, that's an interesting observation. Yeah. Yeah, it certainly didn't make me quiet. It
Yeah.
certainly didn't make me like it was I remember feeling like this like I imagine how like a dynamite feels or some sort of bomb feels like this the pressure of the situations around me trying to keep me small and my like absolute resistance to it
Yeah.
just like a bomb just like but I was a fighter. I wasn't meek. I was a fighter. I really and again like that's the thing is like to my mom's credit she was a fighter.
Yeah.
She you know she would say like you can't let these things like shut you down. You fight. Fight, Jessica. I mean, she was a fighter. Like that was the thing. She was a literal like she was very scrappy. And
Yeah.
a big thing was like, you know, she would hit me and she'd be like, you know, anytime you think you're big enough, let's go.
Dang.
Like when you're ready, we'll go. We'll fight.
I was what did you have physical altercations with her in that way?
Yeah, as I got older. Yeah. The
Wow.
yeah, we definitely went around. And so there was and I was rewarded for my scrappiness. Like if I got in a fight at school, like the rule was like you better not lose.
Yeah.
If you're gonna fight, you better not lose. You if you fight and you come home and you've lost, I'm gonna beat your ass again.
Yeah.
So she fostered this like aggression.
Yeah. Yeah. You were rewarded for being aggressive.
I was rewarded for being aggressive. I was rewarded for being aggressive and then I was punished for being aggressive. It was so
Right.
everything was so like confusing. Like it was so confusing as a child. And 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 Betsy says that sound like she's been fighting all her life and that's all she knew. Yeah. Yeah. That's really all she knew. And
So
she
she's
wanted
teaching you what you knew.
yeah, and she wanted me to be strong. You know, she knew life was tough and she wanted to make me tougher.
And
And
that's how tough is fight.
yeah, yeah. And I am grateful for that because it has, you know, given me a sense, a sort of strength and this ability that when things get tough, like you don't give up. You don't let it like you just don't. You don't and you don't let people push you around and it's better to like fight and get the shit kicked out of you rather than to let someone push you around or you know so
Yeah.
yeah it was very very much like you have to fight. Like you have to fight. Life sucks and you have to be stronger.
Wow.
You know, which is I guess like a good and a bad thing.
It's good. It's also like there's a lot to be said for the times that your body just said stop it. You can't, you have to stop. It kept you
I looked up so in that book that I used, the Anatomy, she just came out with a children's version of it because like you can't, I've tried it with the boys when they've had certain symptoms. It doesn't really apply for children. All of the time. It's a little weird, and because they haven't had enough experience in life. So she just came out with a children's one, and Carrie, who owns the property here, Carrie and John, they just got her kids version.
Cool.
And it was like, wow. I'll have to get it and read it next time. Because my body was tired. From the beginning. It was a lot. It was a lot. It was a lot to handle. And like I remember when my dad, when I was up in Pennsylvania 6 months before he passed away, he was telling stories and he would talk about like, you were so difficult and you were such a problem child. And it was kind of this joke. I remember looking at him and going, it's not difficult. Like I was a traumatized child who was getting abused. I had like massive serious health conditions. I went through extremely traumatic experiences. And I wasn't bad. I was traumatized. Like, stop telling the story. I was a bad kid. I was a good kid. All I wanted was attention and love. And I got kicked around for it. So, like, fucking telling that story.
Yeah.
And he was like, he stopped and he was like, you're right. So sorry. Like, you're right. You weren't a bad kid. You really were going through a lot. And I was like, yeah, like, stop dismissing my experience and blaming it on me.
Right.
Kid, what did you want me to do? Like, adults couldn't handle all of what I was going through. Like,
Absolutely.
Get the fuck out of here with that shit.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
That was really healing for me to say that to my dad.
I love he heard you.
Huh?
I love that he actually heard you. He heard it.
Yeah, me too. Me too. That felt like love.
Yeah.
And validated like that. So, Betsy, thank you for your compliments.
She says such amazing
things. She's so sweet. Betsy is just a sweetheart, and she's been with me from the beginning of like getting on YouTube, and when I see her all the time on social media, she's always been very supportive and present, and for that I'm super grateful. Thank you, Betsy.
I bet that's been really lovely for her to see you coming back out. And I just think, you just have such an authenticity that shines from inside. And you are just so damn fearless at just being yourself. And I imagine that's just even more shiny and beautiful now, as opposed to then when, we've all grown so much. And I know you grew so much, and especially with kind of going dark for a while and coming back out. I bet that's really neat for her to see who you are, even more who you are.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to see where all of this goes. Right now, like you had said, it was like mining, like right now, mining gold.
Yeah, you are.
I like that perspective, because like, and I am excited to see where this goes, because I know I'm not going to stop.
That's definitely true.
So I'm curious. I'm curious to see how this all.
I'm excited. I'm curious too. And I realize, there's a lot of chances to kind of get real impatient with the with the lack of stuff now, or lack of things now. Yeah.
It's just I get frustrated with, like, I feel like I don't have the education that I need to accomplish certain things. Like, I don't understand the business world, and like there's just a lot of stuff that I
Don't even know what you don't know.
yeah, you don't know what you don't know. And so I get stuck in seeing people who have figured it out and feeling frustrated, like, how do I figure that out? I know I can do that, but how do I, like, how do I do that? How do I do that? And I know it's, being present in the moment, going step by step, alchemizing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Alchemizing. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks.
Are we on Tuesday? But
what's that?
we're going to be back next Tuesday.
Oh, I don't have my. Yes, we will be back Tuesdays. Yeah, yep. And we're going to be, from what I remember, we were going to talk about the purge and the basic, like, side effects of ascension.
Yeah. Sounds great.
That's going to be great. So,
I love it.
yeah, so we'll see everybody then. Thank you so much, for Betsy joining, and thank you for whoever is watching this after. Make sure you press that like button. And we'll see you on Tuesday or Friday or both.
Yeah, sounds great. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Gotta figure out how to turn this off. All right, here we go. Bye, everybody. Everybody have a happy day. All right.